Hey everyone! Welcome back to another video. Today, we'll be talking about how an economy with an output gap can revert back to long-run equilibrium in the absence of government actions. Let's get started. First, let's begin with how an economy can recover from a recessionary gap in the long run without government intervention. In a previous lesson, you may have learned that when a recessionary gap occurs, the unemployment rate will be higher than the natural rate. Since workers and other resources are sitting idle when there's a recessionary gap, eventually those unemployed workers will accept lower wages and resource prices will fall. Lower wages and lower resource prices will mean lower costs for businesses, and those lower production costs will cause the short-run aggregate supply curve to shift right, bringing the economy back to long-run equilibrium. Next, we'll look at how an economy can recover from an inflationary gap. When the economy has an inflationary gap, the unemployment rate is lower than the natural rate. Since the unemployment rate is so low, businesses will have trouble finding workers to hire, and that labor shortage will lead to higher wages. Other resource prices will also rise. Higher wages and higher resource prices will mean higher costs for businesses, and those higher production costs will cause the short-run aggregate supply curve to shift left, bringing the economy back to long-run equilibrium. When the economy moves to long-run equilibrium, it will not stay there forever. Changes in aggregate demand or aggregate supply can cause the economy to move into a recessionary or an inflationary gap. Nevertheless, no matter the cause, it will always be a shift of the short-run aggregate supply, through changes in wages and other resources prices, that brings the economy back to long-run equilibrium. Let's look at important examples of leaving equilibrium from a change in aggregate demand and coming back with a shift of short-run aggregate supply. If there is an increase in consumer confidence, consumers will spend more, and aggregate demand will shift to the right. That increase in aggregate demand will cause an inflationary gap to occur. If there is no government intervention, wages and other input prices will rise, causing short-run aggregate supply to shift to the left, restoring long-run equilibrium. Now, if there is a decrease in consumer confidence, consumers will spend less, and aggregate demand will shift to the left. That decrease in aggregate demand will cause a recessionary gap to occur. If there is no government intervention, wages and other input prices will fall, causing short-run aggregate supply to shift to the right and restoring long-run equilibrium. It's important to understand that shifts in the long-run aggregate supply curve indicate changes in the full employment level of output and economic growth. Changes in the quality or quantity of resources will cause a shift of the long-run aggregate supply curve. When long-run aggregate supply shifts, the real GDP output produced with full employment, represented by YF, will also change. A rightward shift of long-run aggregate supply increases full employment output and is a sign of economic growth, while a leftward shift of long-run aggregate supply decreases full employment output and is a sign of economic decline. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching and make sure to like and subscribe. We hope to see you soon.